Yo, what's up? My name is Tim with DoMusicFullTime.com, and this is The Path. The Path is a structured way of looking at a full-time music career if you are a producer or original artist or a cover artist or band on the internet, eventually potentially touring. It's broken down into two stages. The first one is production, and the second one is distribution. This is meant to be a 10-year timeline, realistically. I'm not going to, tell you that you can do this in a year or 5 years. You should be planning that this is going to take you 10 years. If you do that, then you'll actually have a realistic expectation of what you can, likely achieve in that time frame. If you're trying to do this in 1 or 2 years, this is probably not the video for you. I don't know how you're going to do that, but good luck. First thing you're going to do is create a brand. A brand is the thing that people are going to latch onto, right? This is, a lot of people think of a brand as like a typeface or a logo or a font or a color scheme. The brand is really the feeling that people get when they think about your product or service, or in this case, your music or your merchandise or your shows, right? We're going to be building the same brand for this entire time period. So 10 years. We're not going to be switching brands, every year if something doesn't work out, or we try to, try this and that doesn't work. You're going to need to build a brand that you want to stick with for a decade. If you're 25 now, you're going to do this until you're 35. Second thing you're going to do is write songs. Now you can either write songs or you can play and record cover songs, and that's totally fine. I actually was very successful doing that myself, started a cover band on the internet and, streamed over 40 million times, generating $100,000 in streaming revenue. Totally possible. You can do that. But you will need songs. Third thing you're going to do is produce those songs. Now, I recommend learning the skill of production, which we'll go through in other courses. You're going to need to learn how to produce the songs yourself. Depending on somebody else to produce your songs is going to limit your ability to get your ideas out into the world, right? It's also going to be very expensive, and realistically, we live in the future. You can just get like an M4 Mac Mini for $600, a $200 audio interface, a mic, some cables for your guitar, and begin your journey of learning how to produce, which, for most people should take 2 to 5 years to be a very high skilled producer, right? Fourth thing you're going to do is release songs. Once you release the songs into the world, now people can latch onto them. They can find you. They can do all that good stuff. Once you get into the distribution phase, it's all about creating content, letting people know that you exist, making merchandise so you can monetize your brand that you've now built, whether it's through t-shirts or vinyl or stickers. And then finally, if you decide to, you can tour. All right, now we're going to talk about your brand. If you were to read the book, The Brand Gap by Marty Neumeier, which is recommended reading on DoMusicFullTime.com, he makes the case that 60% of the value of a company or an offering or a product or service is really dependent on the brand. So if you take Coca-Cola, which is one of the examples he uses in the book, people are not necessarily buying sugar water in a plastic bottle or a glass bottle. They're really buying this feeling that they get when they're drinking a, brand name Coca-Cola, right? It's the label, it's the packaging, it's the shape of the bottle. There are all these components that make up the brand. That's not just a container with sugar liquid inside of it. Just realizing that as you are embarking on this 10-year journey, more than half of the value of what you're really building here is this brand, right? You obviously have to have good music. You obviously have to, when you play shows, perform well and give people a great experience and, all that stuff. But realistically, what people are latching onto is the feeling that they get when they are thinking about your music or your merch or your shows, right? This brand, which we represent with visual elements, logos and typefaces and, shapes and colors and stuff like that. But realistically, all of that is to invoke this feeling about how people feel when they think about your product. Like if I say Apple, for example, you might say, you might think and feel amazing quality computers and sleek aluminum design and glass and stainless steel. Or you might think overpriced and, not worth, paying for because you're a PC guy. The brand is going to be unique to each person, right? Same thing with bands. You might like the Red Hot Chili Peppers. You might like Taylor Swift. To someone, Taylor Swift means, the best concert they ever went to with their friends and, whatever. And you might think it's overpriced, pop, generic garbage. That's perfect. The brand is subjective to you. You're going to create this brand, hopefully one that actually is, makes people latch onto it so tightly that it pushes other people away. You want a brand that is not necessarily, divisive, but you do want a brand that really speaks to a certain audience, because then you're also speaking not to, to people that are not that audience, if that makes sense, right? You know what I'm saying? All right. You are going to have to write and compose songs. Now you can, like I said before, you can be a cover band on the internet, and that's totally fine. You can make, thousands or tens of thousands of dollars a year or month doing that if you do it well and produce them, produce really high quality versions of these cover songs that were written by other people. And we'll talk about all that in the fundamentals course. For right now, we're just going over the basics, which is you're going to have to write and compose these songs. Writing and composing songs is really a refining process, right? So you're going to start with 100 song ideas or sketches. Just knock these things out. Maybe it's a chorus, maybe it's a hook, maybe it's just some lick on your guitar. Once you have those, pick the 20 best ideas, the things that are really sticking out to you, the stuff that you want to elaborate on. Once you have that, refine those down, really kind of hone in on what the essence of that song is going to be. Then narrow that list down to the best 10 or 14 songs, which is, 10 to 14 songs, which is like an album, right? Once you have an album's worth of songs, finish writing the final selection of songs, and then we can move on to production and recording. All right. So to make your songs come into the real world, you're going to need to record and produce them. So really it's a 3-step process. It's recording, producing, and then mixing and mastering those songs. Now I do all of these whenever I'm in a project, right? I'll record guitars or drums or keys or bass or whatever, or I'll work with somebody who can also record things like vocals or other stuff. I do all the production myself, and mixing and mastering I do too, and I'll show you how to do all that stuff in the fundamentals course. But realistically, recording is just making a quality signal path, which is the cable that you're using, the guitar that you're using, the interface for your computer, and the computer itself, right? The path that the signal goes down. We want to have a super high quality signal path. I want to make sure we start with that. That's really the essence of recording, is making sure that you're getting really clean, high quality, raw input into your digital audio workstation, which is a fancy name for the piece of software you record and produce music with, something like Logic Pro or Pro Tools or Ableton, right? Second step is production. It's attention to detail. It's going over all of the tracks and making sure that there aren't, funky mouth noises, and there aren't, weird clicks on the guitar that you don't want. Cleaning up all the tracks, adding in some effects, some reverbs, delays, making sure stuff's kind of, has the right feel and soundscape for what you want to do. Really producing that out. The most important part of production is really vocal production. Most people are not musicians, and so what they are going to be listening to are the vocals. Most people are just going to be listening to the vocals, right? So the better you can get at vocal production, the more likely people are going to listen to your songs when they're produced well, and it's a good song or it's a cover song, right? Mixing is getting all the pieces to sit correctly, right? So you want to get all the pieces not too loud. You don't want the drums too loud and the guitars, super abrasive on your ears. Going through each individual piece and really finding a place for it to sit in the stereo field so it's nice and balanced. Nothing's too loud, nothing's too harsh. No frequency is, freaking out. Your bass frequencies wouldn't blow somebody's speakers if they were to turn it up too loud. That's really the art of mixing. And then mastering is the final part of that process, which is like the sheen. It's how can you get, a nice even loudness throughout the song? Because there might be quiet and loud parts in the same song. So how do you keep the dynamic range so that people do not have to ride their volume knob in the car? Because the verses are really quiet and then the choruses are super loud. So you got to turn it down, right? Mastering kind of helps balance out the level of the song. It adds a little bit of, shimmer and sheen at the end, and just kind of, really glues that whole song together to make it so that it's ready for streaming platforms. All right. So here's a crazy chart, which you might look at and say, this is insane. But what's crazy is I did this thing with a cover band on the internet. The first year we actually did 100,000 streams. Second year we did 3 million streams. The fourth year we did 16 million streams, and the most recent year was, well over 25 million streams. So this is a 10-year chart, right? This is me telling you hey, try to do this over the course of 10 years. You get 10,000 streams your first year, 100,000, and then so on. This is completely realistic. If you take your time and you approach this process, building one brand, focusing on high quality production, high quality output, learning vocal production, learning, how to mix, unless you want to pay somebody to do that. I don't necessarily, if you don't have, decent headphones, you should get them. If you don't have a good room to mix in, that's fine. But realistically, those are skills that you should learn. And if you do that, then they will pay dividends on your time, because now you're not going to, every time you want to put out a song, you're not going to have to be like, oh, I got to hit up my producer, and I know that's, $800, and I got to hit up my mixer, and that's $350. And man, every time I want to put out a song, it's almost $2,000. It's like, yeah, don't do that. Learn how to produce, learn how to mix, learn how to master. You can learn those skills well enough to where you can release competitively good, like high quality product. You don't necessarily need the absolute highest quality compressors and soundboards and studio recordings to make a really good final product. You can do it at your house, I promise you. Here's the streaming platform market share. So Spotify makes up 1/3 of all the streaming platform user base. Apple Music is only 13%, but they do pay the most per stream. So if you can get a lot of streams on Apple Music, it's like almost a 3-to-1 ratio. Every stream pays 3 times as much as it would on Spotify. So something to think about. Not really much you can control there unless you're really targeting people that use iPhones and Apple Music. All right, next we're going to create content. Content is letting people know that you exist, right? Nobody knows you exist. You built this brand, you're producing these songs, no one knows who you are, nobody knows you exist. A lot of people in the past would go through this process of, building a live show or rehearsing a live show and then going and playing their local market, right? We're going to play a show every 2 weeks, or we're going to play a show once a month, and we're going to get all our friends out. We're going to sell these tickets, and there's going to be 150 people there, and we're going to do that 10 times a year. And that's crazy. Don't do that. That's insane. Just build on the internet. There are billions of people connected to devices like this that you can simply broadcast video content directly to their device. The algorithms are so good nowadays. TikTok and YouTube and Instagram, they know if you like funk music. They know if you like hip hop. They know if you are a drummer, right? So make the content that would let the people that already like what you're making know that you exist. That's all you got to do. On YouTube, you could do long form, behind the scenes, show some show footage if you do play live shows, how you make your beats, how you, really any part of your process. You can, do skits and short form. If you want to get on TikTok, you can make funny stuff. You can make little quick updates. Doesn't really matter. You can do all sorts of stuff like that. You can do covers, right? Lots of covers do really well. If somebody likes your sound, like your particular sound, so you're making funk, for example, and they really like the way you play it, if you play a song they already like, some Beatles song, and you turn it into a funk song, they already like the Beatles, they already like funk music. That means they're going to like your cover, they're going to like your band. They might want to hear more of what you're doing. Maybe not even covers. They might be like, man, this band is so good, or this guy who does these, all this production, so good. I want to follow this person and see what else they can produce. So putting out some covers is a great idea. And then text-based platforms like Threads or Twitter, really had a lot of fun on Threads in the past, I don't know, like 2 or 3 weeks. I've just been kind of messing around on there, just seeing like what's going on. It's been nice. There's tons of friendly people on Threads. They're talking about their music, talking about production, talking about touring, or, the economics behind stuff, or just, just trying to find new music. So get on Threads, get on these platforms, let people know that you exist. Don't think of content as it has to be perfect and it's just like my art and whatever. Your art can be your art, and your productions, we can take those super, super seriously. We can make sure that the recording and the vocal production and the mixing, all that stuff is as high caliber as we can possibly make it. Think of the social media platforms as just a way to let people know that you exist. Do not sit there and obsess over it. It does not matter. All right, now we're going to talk about how you could potentially make a full-time income from doing music. Now, this is much easier if you do not have a large band. If you're trying to do music full-time and you have 4 band members, the average annual salary in America is $60,000 a year. So if you want to replace all 4 of those salaries, it's $240,000 a year. That's pretty difficult. It's possible. It might take you longer than 10 years. It might take you shorter than that. Again, I don't control the timeline of how long it's going to take, but if I were to guess, it's going to take you longer than 10 years to do that for 4 people. If you are making your own music, you're a singer-songwriter, you have a guitar, and you write and, or do covers and produce your own music, or you're just a music producer and you bring in vocalists to work with and stuff like that. If you own the project outright, it's your project, but you happen to do some work for hire agreements with people to work on your project, the likelihood that you can hit $60,000 a year is, very high. Is it 100%? No, of course not. But it's very high, especially on this 10-year time horizon that we're talking about. So 1 million streams a month, per year, that would be $36,000 per year. This also includes YouTube views. So going back to what I was saying about content, if you're making this content and you can, kind of make some engaging content, make some behind the scenes, some live content, maybe you have some stuff that goes viral because somebody did something funny at your concert and got a beer spilled on them or something. You will get paid for those views. You can monetize all those views on YouTube. It's actually, you get paid more for YouTube views than you do for streams, right? So if you could get 1 million streams or 1 million views per month, you're making around 40 grand a year just from that. If you could sell 2,000 t-shirts, right? And the t-shirts, you bought them for $10 a piece and you're selling them for 20, that's 20 grand right there in merch. Now, it's not impossible to sell 2,000 t-shirts, especially if you've been letting people know that you exist, you're putting out stuff, people are liking your music, you make some really good t-shirts, right? You hire a designer from Fiverr who makes some really sick t-shirts. Maybe you do limited editions, like, oh, we're only selling 50 of these. You sell the t-shirts out before you get them printed because people, now you know all the sizes that you need. Right? Because if you try to buy you won't know what size all these people that are buying these limited edition t-shirts. So, you maybe print one, you have it and you're like, yo, we're selling 50 of these things only or 100 of these things only. That's great. You can make a bunch of different designs, make them limited editions. People love that stuff. Scarcity creates demand. There's a lot of ways to sell, 2,000 t-shirts. And again, we're talking about a 10-year time horizon. You should be selling more than 2,000 t-shirts a year realistically if you've been doing this for 10 years. Local and regional shows, this is if you just begin the process. Let's say you've been doing this for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and now you're beginning the process of playing shows and getting the actual band on the road, so to speak. In the beginning, you're going to lose some money, especially if you're the person behind the project. You're going to have to fund the bill for transportation and, housing, lodging, and, you may have a per diem for some of the artists, or the musicians that you're bringing on the road. If you're a guitar player, singer, and you're bringing a drummer and bass player on the road, they're going to have a day rate, call it $100 to $300 a day. Plus you're going to, if there's some kind of per diem on top of that, plus, transportation costs and hotels and gas and, insurance, all those different things. In the beginning, you're going to lose some money. Touring is very expensive until you can get, really a deep foundation in some key markets, your Dallas and Los Angeles and, Atlanta, like some of the key markets in a region. And then now you can go to Dallas and play San Antonio, Austin, Houston, and, Oklahoma City. You can kind of do a little regional tag in one of those areas based around the fact that, okay, we lost some money playing Dallas a bunch of times, but now we can bring, 200, 300, 400 people to a show in Dallas. It's not impossible to make $60,000 a year doing music full time. It is much more difficult if you have 3 to 5 different band members. Quick overview on touring. We're not going to go too much into this until we get into the nuts and bolts and the fundamentals, but transportation, whether you own a van or rent a van or something like a bandwagon, right? That's something you got to think about. Also the transportation time, routing your tour. If you're playing a show in Dallas and you're based in Denver, that's a 13, 14 hour, more than that. It's like a 15-hour drive, right? So you gotta plan all of your tour routing, the transportation, the costs, the gas, right? Do the budgets for that. I have budgets that I'm making right now that should be out, pretty soon, or maybe probably by the time you watch this video, they exist, in the communities. You can just download those for free and use them. Production and gear. So this is, all the instruments that you're bringing, your effects pedals, your in-ear monitor systems, your mixers, if you're bringing your own light show, all that stuff, you got to kind of account for that. The team, like I said, if you're a one-man show at the moment, which I recommend, you're going to need to hire a drummer or a bass player or a keyboard player. You might need a front of house engineer. I recommend bringing one of those. Photo and video people, right? A merchandise person, someone that sets up, tears down your merch booth every night, runs the merch booth, right? Then we go into logistics, which is, the day-to-day. What time is sound check? What time is load-in? What time's the curfew for the venue? When do we have to be out of the venue or they start to fine us? Or maybe the city has a noise ordinance. You can't play past 11. What's the Wi-Fi password for the green room? Where is the green room, right? All that stuff really falls into this category. And then merchandise, which is really the most important thing. You are a traveling t-shirt salesman. You're a traveling t-shirt salesman. You're a traveling t-shirt salesman. You are a traveling t-shirt salesman. You're not a band. There's no such thing as a band. You are a traveling textile sales engineer. All of the logistics, team, production gear, and transportation is meant to build something that can hypnotize people into buying textiles, aka t-shirts. That's kind of a joke, but not really. This is really where you're going to make your money. If you have let's even say you have $1,000 guarantee per night, but you're taking 4 people on the road. So 2 hotel rooms, the van, the gas, the cost, the insurance, right? All that stuff. You're burning through $800 to $1,000 a day easily. So your guarantee for playing the show is gone. Just on, overhead. The only money you're going to make when you're on the road is by selling merchandise. So when we hit the road and we tour for 2 weeks or a month at a time, we're bringing tens of thousands of dollars of merchandise, which means we also have to have tens of thousands of dollars before we hit the road to invest in the merchandise, to then drag around, huge boxes full of t-shirts and hoodies to sell while we're on the road. So just something to be aware of. This is actually how you're going to sustain yourself and build a touring career, and understanding the principles of merchandise. What makes a good t-shirt, good hoodie, good quality stuff, right? If you make these really cheap t-shirts that you can get printed for $6 and they fall apart, someone that bought a t-shirt last time you were in town might not buy a t-shirt next time. So going back to what we were talking about with the brand, 60% of the value of your of what you're doing here is really the brand. And the brand is the feeling people get when they think about your products or services. In this case, the music, the shows, the merchandise. If they think that your stuff is cheap, that is your brand, right? You now have cheap merch. You're the cheap merch band because they bought a t-shirt last time. It fell apart and the print came off. So realizing, where you need to invest your money to actually get this thing going is crucial. All right. This is the dollar amount you're trying to replace with a, full-time music income. It's not exactly easy, but it's completely doable. Again, if we're thinking about things in that 10-year time horizon, we're not doing this overnight. It's not possible. Maybe you can win the lottery. Maybe your dad is some multi-platinum producer. That sounds great, but most likely not if you're watching this video. All right. The fundamentals. This course is going to be free at domusicfulltime.com. It's coming out in the first quarter of 2025. So you should be able to see this. If you're watching this video later than that, then just go to domusicfulltime.com and, go through this course. It's completely free. Again, this timeline here, these 8 sections are really assuming a 10-year time horizon at 25 hours a week minimum, right? So you work your 40-hour-a-week day job, you eat, you work out, you see your family, you do stuff. You're putting in, 2 10-hour days and a 5-hour day, or you're putting in 4 hours every night after work, right? This is serious if you want to do this thing. Again, you don't have to try to do music full time. It's not the easiest thing to do. There's definitely easier ways to make money. But if this is what you want to do, we're talking about a pretty good time investment on the same project, the same brand. All right. First thing we're going to do in this course is we're going to teach you how to produce music. So I think it's extremely crucial that everybody knows how to produce their own music. Getting an audio interface, getting a basic computer setup, getting the digital audio workstation, Logic, Ableton, anything like that. Just getting all that software in place and then learning how to produce music. After that, we're going to learn the tech stack, Google Drive, QuickBooks, Shopify, the ways that you're going to sell your merchandise online, the artist backends. We're going to go over all that stuff. Learning how to build a brand. So we've talked about what the brand is, which is the feeling people get when they think about your music, your merch, your shows. But really, what does it mean to build the brand? And, kind of alluded to, the quality of your merch reflects on your brand. The quality of your production reflects on your brand. The quality of the visual elements that you use to display things outwardly to people, like your logo and your type font and your colors, those, represent your brand. So really understanding the components of a brand and how to build a strong brand image and get people to, really have positive experiences about your music, merch, and your shows. And then we're going to go into the legal and financial portion. It's really contracts, understanding what an operating agreement is when you work with somebody else, making sure that you are protected. If you're a singer, songwriter, it's your project, making sure you have work for hire agreements in place so that people aren't able to say later on, oh, I've been part of this band since day one. And now all of a sudden you have to pay some, person to do this whole situation and leave your project, even though they were never in it, right? The financial portion, taxes, right? Understanding that you're a 1099 contractor with, all of this income that you're making, nothing is withheld. So understanding depreciation. If you buy really high-end equipment, you can depreciate that on your taxes. If you're, understanding write-offs, understanding all that stuff. So we can go over the basics with that. Then learning how to monetize. This goes back to merchandise, right? So selling t-shirts, vinyl, limited edition prints. the streaming, where you can get your streaming revenue, sync licensing. So if you want to get your song in a movie or a TV show, right? Stuff like that. Then creating content. This is really, like I said before, just about letting people know that you exist. Do not think of content as some mechanism to, further your artistic expression. You can totally do that, but I'm telling you right now, you'll just get better at it over time. Just do it today. Like, pick up the thing and be like, right now we're recording guitars on this crazy goth song. Great. It's not going to be good, and you're going to do hundreds of those videos and no one's going to care. Just do that. Let people know that you exist. If someone really loves goth music and they really love goth guitar, and you post something like that to TikTok, TikTok will put it in front of them. TikTok knows that they like goth music and guitars. They do. So I don't know, use it as a little, digital slot machine where, you'll just keep cranking on that thing. And eventually maybe one of those videos you post, hits the jackpot and 1 million people see it. And because you're posting a lot, you're getting better at it. Right. Then we're going to go into building your dream team, which really, if you're at the stage 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years in, you're going to need to start bringing people into your project in some capacity, maybe not fully becoming members of the project, right? You can still own the project outright, but finding people that you're going to hire for tours, maybe a drummer or a front of house engineer, maybe a producer. Maybe you do like, having somebody else produce your music, and now you've been doing it for a while, you're getting some money in, you want to reinvest some of that money, not in you producing the songs, but somebody else. Really finding the members of your team. This is going to be, a big period of networking where you're going to be reaching out to the contacts that you made, seeing if they know people who know people, going to, events or things like NAMM and stuff like that. Just really trying to find the people who can help realize your vision. And then finally, live production and touring, and then building a show. Really, this should be much later. A lot of bands put this way too far in the beginning. They're like, all right, we got a couple songs. Let's start playing shows tomorrow. It's like, no, before you play a show, you should have an album out. You should build. The internet's where you build. The stage is here. It's this glass rectangle in your hand. It's the thing that you're watching this on. This is the stage. Like, this is the stage. There is no other stage. The stage that you drive around to and put your guitar amps on is a privilege, and it's very expensive to be on that stage. So do not incinerate all your cash in the beginning trying to get on that stage. Bands want, like national touring bands want opening bands to be able to pull people in certain markets. Well, you're not going to be able to pull people if people don't even know that you exist in those markets. If you're trying to go to these markets having never built on the internet, there's going to be nobody at these shows except the people that work at the bar. It's not a good look. So once you get to the live production and, touring and building a show stage, you should be mildly known in some capacity. People, whether they're in your, local or regional scene or internet scene, you've built a pretty good audience on TikTok or YouTube. Now you can say, hey guys, we're looking at playing some shows. Drop a location down below. Cool. We saw Dallas 6 times. We saw Philadelphia 3 times, right? You can start to be like, okay, could we route some kind of tour in here? Maybe play a couple one-off shows and, maybe buy some Instagram ads and tell people like, we're coming to your town. Next, we're going to talk about stacking the deck, which these are the behaviors or traits that somebody would have to make success a far more likely outcome, right? The number one is work ethic. This is definitely one of the most important things on here. I mean, if you need motivation to work, just go get a job, dude. This is not the one. I'm telling you, this is not the one. You have to be able to just work through the feeling of not wanting to work. That's part of this entire career that you're choosing for yourself. The next one is talent and ability. And actually, talent is way, way less important than ability. So having ability, you can gain ability, right? I know people that are not talented musicians that are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year doing music because they have, gained ability through decades of work. Maybe they weren't a good singer and they taught themselves how to sing. They weren't a naturally good guitar player and they taught themselves how to play guitar. You do not need natural talent. In fact, I think not having it might actually be more beneficial because people with talent seem to think that the talent will like carry them through, regardless of their work ethic or ability. The next thing you're going to want is a do-it-yourself attitude. If you constantly need other people to realize your vision for you, you need a producer, you need a mixer, you need somebody that understands vocal engineering, you need somebody that understands branding. It's going to be harder for you to do music full time. It just is. Mindset. If you believe that you can do this thing, if you believe that you can be a full-time musician, you're more likely to achieve that outcome. If you don't believe that, if you think like, man, it's just not going to happen for me, then it's not. It's not. There's no way for me or anyone else to convince you that you can do something if you yourself don't believe you can do it. Mindset is huge. Sales and marketing skills. Understanding how to sell something, realizing that everyone is selling all the time. I'm selling you on watching this video and watching further videos that I make, because hopefully you liked what I made here and you're like, I want to see more, right? Marketing, understanding branding, and understanding, how to get people to feel a certain way about your music or your merch or your shows, right? Super important. Networking, getting out there, meeting people, getting into your either local scenes, regional scenes, the internet scenes, finding people that are either doing what you're doing or doing similar things, asking them questions, just getting to know people, opening up your, world to new people that might be able to help you along your path. And then finally, the most important thing on here is mentorship. Find somebody that has done exactly what you want to do and get that person to mentor you. Whenever I was first trying to get my first 1 million streams, I found producers that had produced some of the best records in the genre that I was working in and, shot them Instagram DMs and emails and was like, hey, is there any way you'd be willing to be a mentor? Most people let that thing go straight to voicemail. Nobody cared. A few people were like, hey man, good luck out there. And then a couple of people were like, hey, I don't do mentorship, but I do have a studio if you want to record. And I'm like, how much is studio time? And they're like, oh, it's, $150 an hour. I'm like, great. What's your PayPal? They sent the PayPal. I sent them $150. Like, great. When do you want to book studio time? I'm like, I don't. I want to spend an hour with you talking about what I can do better with this production and why my bass tone sounds like this and how did you get this tone on that song when you were producing it. And they're like, oh, okay. Totally fine with it. Find the people who have done what you want to do and pay them for mentorship and figure out a way to get the information that they have into your brain. There's otherwise you're just going to spend more time to try to get it and you may never get it. Because, it's not like you can just magically learn everything through osmosis. Some people have figured stuff out that you don't know, and you may never know if you don't ask them. So that's it. Every Wednesday, we do a free Q&A call at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. For the time being right now, we're doing Tech Support Thursdays at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. That may change in the future by the time you see this video. We got free courses. There's a free community. Come hang out. There's lots of people talking about their production setups or what they're struggling with to get, gigs or whatever it is that they want to talk about. I'm in there all the time, nonstop. Come hang out in the community. We'd love to see you there.